I'm sitting here with Steve. He's a captain in the U.S. Air Force. Before we get kind of started with your job, I want to kind of dive into, we were talking about, you're out here with your wife, who is also in the Air Force. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit and discuss what she does, what you do, how difficult it is or how awesome it is to be working together and whatnot?
Yeah, I'll kind of tie the two together for you. So my job on the jet, I'm a surveillance controller. I operate the radar and our active sensors. She's a fighter allocator, so she runs the actual control team on the aircraft. A few consoles that way. So we met in training about almost 9 years ago now. And have bounced around assignments together. With the U.S., you're able to kind of follow your spouse to an extent. So we've gone all over the world together, and yeah, it's been great.
So, kind of shifting gears here, you're one of, I believe, 4 Americans on this aircraft.
Yes.
What is it like working with multinationals? Because I know that a lot of Americans don't really see the European side of NATO. So what is your experience working with all of these multinational partners?
It's been really excellent. Everyone kind of brings their own perspective to how we operate. The U.S. side generally has fewer procedures on identification and things like that. Whereas with congested airspace and lots of national boundaries out here, that's much more heavily focused on out here. So it brings a very different kind of mindset to the fight and gives us the opportunity to train on things that we may not train on as much in the States. So yeah, it's been really, really good to kind of see how everything operates differently and take a piece of that back to the States with us when we eventually leave.
You've worked on, you have this unique perspective where you've worked on the NATO AWACS, the NATO E-3 Sentry, but you've also worked on U.S. E-3 Sentry AWACS platforms. If possible, can you kind of describe if there's any differences, if there's subtle differences, anything like that, to working them?
Yeah, so essentially the capabilities are basically the same. Not a lot of difference there. The way you interact with the system is where the changes are. It's mostly in the computer, Windows type, point and click. Here we have a lot more external buttons, which changes how you operate with the system, but it can be kind of nice because you don't have as many things cluttering your screen. So that's really the biggest difference. Overall, though, the capability is almost exactly the same.
Do you have any challenges that you face potentially working with people of other cultures, people with different language barriers? I know everyone speaks English on here, but do you have any challenges ever that come up?
I mean, the only really challenges are also the benefits, I guess. You've got people that have things that they're focused on from their background, whether it's ID or whatever. So sometimes if something's really important to me, it's not important to you, and vice versa. And finding the middle ground, it's not a bad thing, but it's something to overcome.
How important are exercises like Ramstein Flag 24 to the American people? I know, we're an ocean away. Things happen, obviously Ukraine happens. We're not directly affected like the European continent might be. So how important is it that you're here, a part of this mission?
It's incredibly important. So whether it's the U.S. or any of our partners from Europe, none of us fight alone. It doesn't matter if it's Afghanistan or any other theater. No one country is going to go into that by themselves. So having the opportunity to do a large exercise with lots of countries and practice that integration in a controlled environment and wash, rinse, repeat, and get to learn together is absolutely critical to wherever we go for a real event, being able to operate at a high level.
Looking kind of to the future of operations, from your perspective and seat, obviously we've seen a new platform come online, the E7 came online, but where do you see the future of your job specifically, the capabilities of the aircraft? Is there anything potentially in the automation world or even artificial intelligence that you see, not just perhaps in the NATO AWACS, but the US side or anything like that? that you can speak to, obviously?
Yeah, I haven't had the pleasure of flying on the E-7, so I can't talk to that. But I think the unofficial, my personal opinion, AI is in every aspect of military operations is going to play a huge role going forward. There's a lot of decision points when we're working through our job where you have to open a window and assess what's there, open another window, assess what's there, whereas if you had an AI that was able to just go through those in nanoseconds, it would speed things up incredibly. So I think that's going to be a huge driving force, regardless of where my career field ends up.
I have a lot of followers that are younger, and many of them come to me and say, I'm thinking of joining the military, and I give my perspective. I was an Army guy. I did 11 years. Obviously, the Air Force is a completely different perspective. Do you have anything that you want to say to them, like how amazing or how tough this job is? Something that maybe, not necessarily like you're not a recruiter, but yeah, kind of talk about how it's benefited you and how you enjoy it or whatever, or not.
Yeah, no, I've absolutely loved every minute of it. I've been to all parts of the world, Middle East, South America, Europe, you name it, I've been there. So travel obviously is a big one for the Air Force. We bounce around everywhere, but also getting to meet different people. Obviously, NATO is a great example of that. But even in a non-military environment, when you get to travel that much, you get to see all different ways that people live and work and so on. So it's been really, really good in that regard. The job, though, is challenging. I mean, we can work long hours. I've flown up to 17 hours on a single mission, and you're working the whole time. And it's not physically taxing, but it's incredibly mentally taxing to stay engaged that long. So I would say that's the biggest challenge of the job.
How do you get through that? 17 hours is a long time. I was a 9-hour flight and I was exhausted to come over here. What do you do personally to stay focused? Because your mission is incredibly important, and a single loss of focus could be catastrophic. So how do you maintain that focus and stay kind of on the ball in a long mission like that?
Yeah, kind of going back to that teamwork thing, we've got a crew of 20, 30 people all working together, and people, help catch mistakes, work with each other. I've been on missions where it was not even someone's specific job that they caught something that someone else missed. It's just one unit working together. So no one on the jet's going to do that kind of duration alone.
Yeah. So just one final question, and as I've said before to other folks I've talked to, a big question that comes up is, what do you find just personally rewarding about your service, whether it's in the Air Force to the United States or even just on this aircraft with such a critical mission?
Yeah, I think it's kind of been the opportunity to be there when it happens. We got to do the Middle East during ISIS, and then Ukraine kicked off, and now we're out here. And so no matter what's going on in the world, especially in this job, you're near it and you're involved and you're helping with security or even humanitarian. We've done hurricane support, working radios when all the radio sites were out. So no matter what it is, whether it's humanitarian or military, you're there for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. And stay safe in the future. Good luck on future missions. And I wish you and your wife safe travels back home to the United States.
Yep.